It's a beautiful summer's day. The breeze is stupendous.
You had
Hey, I
Frank
proved
Warren.
myself, boy.
You had your time. Let's have some parliamentary procedure here, all right?
Would you like a sweetie?
A what?
A sweetie.
I'll take a Smartie.
These are Smarties, indeed. A absolutely stupendous confectionery.
Chris Eubank was born on August 8, 1966, in Dulwich, London, England. He is one of the most unique and interesting characters in boxing, and also highly skilled. Love him or hate him, he's one of the toughest men to enter the ring and has an incredibly tough chin. His trainer was Ronnie Davies, who is one of the most respected trainers in Britain and has a vast knowledge of the sweet science. He fought mostly in middleweight and super middleweight classes, but also had a few belts in the cruiserweight class towards the end of his career, having a professional record of 52 fights, with 45 wins, 23 of those by knockout, and only 5 losses and 2 draws in his 13-year professional career. This is a 51% knockout to win ratio, which doesn't reflect Eubank's power at all, but we'll get to that later. His style is a mix of counterpuncher and a little bit of brawler too. Most often, he'd be on the back foot waiting for his opponent to make a mistake before unleashing a devastating shot. But he could also stand right in the pocket brawling with the best of them when he had to, using his quick reaction time, granite chin, and quick in and out footwork to his advantage. He turned pro in 1985, shortly after his 19th birthday, beating Tim Brown to secure his first victory. Still being unknown, his next 10 fights were mostly unnoticed, partially due to Nigel Benn's current rising to the top of the weight class. All eyes were on Nigel Benn, casting a shadow on Chris Eubank. In February 1989, he would be on the undercard of one of Nigel's fights, beating Anthony Logan and giving Eubank some media attention. He'd have an impressive run of victories, stopping all of his opponents before the final bell before facing Hugo Cordy for the WBC International title in 1990. He'd win this fight via TKO in the 8th round, securing his first title. Later that year, he had an insanely fast fight, a 20-second knockout victory against Ronaldo dos Santos. Next, Eubank would face the Dark Destroyer himself, Nigel Benn. Eubank was an underdog in this fight, but unbelievably stopped Benn via TKO in round 9, securing the WBO title. He'd have 3 title defenses in the middleweight class, including a great fight against Michael Watson, another fellow Brit. That finished his career as a middleweight with an undefeated record of 28-0, before moving up to super middleweight in a rematch against Watson for the vacant WBO super middleweight title. Watson would be winning this fight on points and drop Eubank to the canvas, before Eubank threw a near-fatal uppercut, causing severe brain injury to Watson. The fight would go 2 more rounds before the ref stopped the fight in the 12th. Watson would need a total of 6 brain operations to remove blood clots, was in a coma for 6 weeks, in the intensive care unit for a year, and for 6 years he was paralyzed in a wheelchair. He had a painstakingly slow recovery, but is able to talk, write, and walk today. Watson is a true warrior in every sense of the word and never held any grudge against Eubank. Earlier, I mentioned Eubank has power, but his record doesn't necessarily show it for how powerful he really is. This is partially because after this fight, Eubank would stop trying to finish opponents and instead try to win on points, being shaken by this tragic event and not wanting anything similar to happen ever again in his career. After a few more fights, there would be a rematch against Nigel Benn to unify the WBC and WBO titles. This took place in 1993 and wasn't as action-packed as their first bout, going the distance and ending in a draw. Eubank would have 7 consecutive title defenses before losing to the great Steve Collins in March 1995 via unanimous decision. There would be a rematch the same year with the same results, with Collins winning by decision. He'd move up to cruiserweight and fight Carl Thompson twice within 3 months. The second fight of this series was the only stoppage loss in his career, due to his left eye swelling completely shut. only one stoppage loss in a 13-year career spanning 3 weight divisions. He'd retire after this fight in 1998. He has 5 children total: Chris Jr., Sebastian, Emily, Joseph, and Nathaniel, with 3 of his sons being professional boxers. Tragically, Sebastian passed away suddenly in 2021 at the young age of 29 due to a heart condition that him and his family hadn't known about. He had only 2 pro fights at the time. Chris Jr. and Nathaniel are still currently fighting to this day, with Chris Jr. being more in the spotlight and training with the legendary Roy Jones Jr. Thank you so much for watching, and have a great day.
1 minute. Please, carry on.